You don't even notice when it happens. You just wake up one morning and realize you've become someone else, a version of yourself built from expectations, likes, opinions, and fear. You used to have a voice, a strange, quiet, authentic pulse inside that said, "This is me." But somewhere between trying to belong and trying not to be judged, you lost it. And now when you look in the mirror, you don't really see a person. You see a collection of roles, a social resume, a reflection optimized for approval. You tell yourself you're fine, you're functioning, you're accepted, you're doing everything right. But late at night, in the moments before sleep, a whisper cuts through the noise. You've built a life that everyone admires, except you. When you were young, you didn't hide. You laughed too loud. You asked too much. You expressed before you edited. But the world taught you quickly, honesty is dangerous. Your first heartbreak didn't just come from love. It came from realizing authenticity could cost you acceptance. So you adapted. You learned when to stay quiet. You learned how to smile when you wanted to scream. You learned which parts of you were too much to be shown. And that's when it began, the quiet collapse of the self. Nietzsche called this the herd instinct. He believed most people never truly live a selfhood, they just imitate. Because belonging feels safer than individuality. And once you trade truth for safety, you start dying in small, polite ways. Modern life perfected the art of imitation. Every scroll, every like, every follower is a mirror, reflecting not who you are, but who you should be. You perform your life now, you curate your joy, you filter your flaws, you call it self-expression, but it's really self-protection. The philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau warned about this long before social media existed. He wrote that in society, we stop being and start appearing. And when appearance replaces being, we become prisoners of perception, forever adjusting ourselves to please invisible eyes. You say you're free, but your worth still rises and falls with other people's attention. That's not freedom. That's digital feudalism. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He said that every ruler must appear virtuous even when he is not, because power depends on perception. The tragedy is that we've all become little rulers now. We manage our images like kingdoms, carefully controlling what others see, deleting what doesn't fit the narrative. But what happens when your image becomes more real than your reality? When the mask starts speaking louder than the person beneath it? Eventually, you forget which one you are. And when that happens, you don't own your life anymore. The crowd does. Psychologists call it conditional worth. It's the belief that you're only lovable when you're impressive, useful, or agreeable. It starts in childhood. Maybe your parents rewarded achievement more than honesty. Maybe your teachers praised obedience more than curiosity. Maybe love always came with terms and conditions. So you learned to shapeshift, to sense what people wanted and become it, to read a room before you enter it, to anticipate rejection and prevent it with performance. You became exceptional at pleasing and terrible at existing. The cost? You stopped asking yourself what you actually want. Dietrich Bonhoeffer once observed that stupidity, not malice, was the greater threat to humanity. Not stupidity as in low intelligence, but the kind that happens when people stop thinking for themselves. He said the stupid person doesn't act from conviction, they act from imitation. And imitation is the root of our emptiness. We follow trends of thought, emotion, morality, without ever asking if they are true. We think we're making choices, but most of our choices are just echoes of what others already chose for us. Bonhoeffer called this the surrender of the inner life. A slow moral erosion that happens when comfort matters more than conscience. And it's not just happening to societies, it's happening to you. Even morality has become performance art. We post, we hashtag, we virtue signal, not always from compassion, but from fear of appearing wrong. Plato would have recognized this as the corruption of truth. In his allegory of the cave, people mistake shadows for reality. Today, our shadows are tweets, trends, and narratives. We defend them like faith, forgetting that the real world still exists outside the screen. And while we argue over appearances, our inner worlds, the only place truth can actually live, grow silent. The psychologist Carl Jung believed that every person wears a persona, a social mask designed to navigate the world. But he warned that when we identify too strongly with that mask, we lose touch with the soul beneath it. That's why depression feels like emptiness, not sadness. It's not always the presence of pain, it's the absence of self. You've spent so long trying to be acceptable that you forgot what authentic even feels like. And here's the paradox. The more you try to be liked, the less lovable you feel. Because you can't feel loved when the person being loved isn't real. Every time you betray yourself to please others, you commit a small act of violence against your own soul. It's silent, invisible, polite, but it accumulates. Until one day you wake up numb. You're surrounded by people, yet deeply alone. You've become fluent in everyone else's language, except your own. That's the real loneliness of our time. It's not isolation from others, it's disconnection from self. And no number of followers can fill that void. So what's the cure? Honesty, brutal, inconvenient honesty. Honesty is not comfortable. It will cost you people, approval, opportunities. But it will return you to yourself. Nietzsche said, "Become who you are, not who they expect, not who they reward, who you are when no one's watching." To do that, you must be willing to disappoint others. You must be willing to outgrow versions of yourself that once earned applause. You must be willing to lose popularity in exchange for presence. That's what freedom actually feels like. Not euphoria, but relief. At first, the silence will feel unbearable. You'll crave the noise again, the metrics, the feedback, the reassurance. But stay there. Stay in the quiet long enough and something miraculous happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. It's faint at first, shaky, unfamiliar, but it's yours. It's the same voice you had before the world taught you to translate yourself into approval. And when you start listening to it, life stops being a performance and starts being a conversation. Freedom always has a price. You will lose people who only loved your mask. You will feel misunderstood by those still asleep. You will face moments of crushing solitude. But you will also experience something rarer than acceptance, wholeness. Plato believed the soul longs to return to the realm of truth, to remember what it really is. Every act of honesty, every risk of authenticity is a step back toward that remembrance. And while the world may never reward you for it, your soul will. One day you'll speak your truth without trembling. You'll stop apologizing for existing. You'll sit in silence and feel peace, not panic. And when someone asks who you are, you won't list your roles or your followers. You'll just smile, because you finally know. The mask will still whisper sometimes. The urge to please will still tug at your sleeve, but you'll see it for what it is, a relic, a shadow you once mistook for light. The modern world tells you to find yourself. But you were never lost. You were simply buried, under approval, performance, and fear. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You need to remember yourself. Because the real you isn't out there waiting to be discovered. It's right here, quietly waiting for you to stop pretending. And when you finally do, the silence won't feel empty anymore. It will feel like coming home, because the loudest applause in the world means nothing if you've gone deaf to your own voice.